Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the Board of Education open session meeting at 7:04. Thank you for your patience. First up, would like to introduce Principal Paige Ramos from Monrovia, Wild Rose School of Creative Arts, who will introduce our student to do the pledge tonight.
Board President Cervanti, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. Good evening, Dr. Trosian, cabinet, and community members. My name is Paige Ramos, and I'm the proud principal at Wild Rose School of Creative Arts, and I'm delighted to be here this evening to participate in the school board meeting. At this time, I would like to introduce Abby Banuelos. She is a 5th grade student who has a lot of experience with being on stage, having starred in our school shows like 101 Dalmatians Kids and Disney's Lion King. She's a student leader and always has a great attitude in school. That's why she was selected to lead us in the flag salute this evening. Abby, take it away.
Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I would like to thank the board today for letting me join this meeting. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and at Wild Rose, we believe that knowledge is power and you got the power.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Abigail, and thank you for joining us and doing a great job with the pledge tonight. Have a good evening. Thank you, Ms. Ramos. I'd like the record to reflect that all board members are present this evening. We did have a closed session. We took no reportable action. Dr. Tarosian, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
We have no changes to the agenda, but I do have an amendment for the minutes. May I?
Yes, please proceed.
We need to note an amendment under item number 1.7. Board member Hammond's name is listed as the designated board representative for Laxter when it should be Board President Travanti. The change has been noted and corrected on the district website.
Great, thank you, Dr. Tarosian. Can I have a motion and a second with the amendment?
So moved with the amendment.
Second, please. Thank you. Ms. Huff, can I have a roll, please?
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Golar?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board President Travanti?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. Next in communications, we have board member reports. Ms. Anderson, I believe you had a report this evening.
Yes, thank you so much. It was my honor to attend the CGI training on, I believe it was Friday, January 15th and Monday, January 25th. This was for the TK through 2nd grade. For anyone who doesn't remember, CGI is cognitively guided instruction. So my takeaways from this were, first, that children are learning math through strategies that work and make sense for them, rather than learning procedures to apply by rote. The focus was clearly on problem solving and critical thinking. I was able to work in small groups with the TK through 2nd grade teachers, and I was so impressed by the enthusiasm our teachers brought to this experience. I watched the teachers support one another and work together to learn new skills in order to enhance the education of our children. I gained valuable insight as to how our teachers are working within this distance learning framework to find ways to maximize the benefit of this unique time period to reach and teach our children. I witnessed young children learning math skills while at the same time building number sense, math confidence, self-esteem, respect for others, listening and communication skills, problem-solving abilities, and critical thinking strategies. There were so many areas of learning and social emotional development that were brought into this experience. I felt so privileged to attend, and I look forward to experiencing the third training session as well. So thank you to all the teachers and to Dr. Giroux, who allowed me to participate. It was a great experience.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Appreciate the report. And on to our student member reports. Antonio Delgado, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, President Travanti, Superintendent Thorosian, and members of the board. Following my last board meeting on the 9th of December, I would like to thank the Board of Education and Superintendent Thorosian for your immediate response to schedule a Zoom meeting with the ASB class of MHS in response to creating a better communication source between our students, faculty, and the school board. During the meeting, our students brought light to some of the struggles we have been dealing with and shared valuable new perspectives to be considered when making decisions for our students. As I speak on behalf of the ASB class, I can say that we are thankful for the chance to share our stories and perspectives, and we look forward to meeting with the board's next visit. Earlier in the day, Superintendent Thorosian and Dr. Jackson met with our ASB class and discussed how our students are all of our concern, and making sure that they are happy and receiving the best education they can is our first priority. Dr. Jackson also went over the plans for the hybrid model, as well as the information they received from the history department of MHS, answering some of the questions about the remaining of the school semester. The survey showed that over the 800 students that did fill out the questionnaire, 85% chose the option to remain with our schedules as of now and not to increase school hours, as well as the information to be considered when creating a hybrid model for if and when we do return back to school. Students are stepping up and doing everything they can to make this time feel normal and help dealing with their emotions. Healing Connections is a club at the MHS campus that is partnering with Bring Change to Mind, a nonprofit organization dedicated to encouraging dialogue about mental health and raising awareness, understanding, and empathy. One of the direct goals of the club is to create an environment at our school that eases stigma around mental health and mental illness. The club offers a peer-based support group for other students to de-stress, participate in opening activities, and have a healthy communications with others. Every student in some type of way has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Some students have lost loved ones. Families are in an economic crisis. Students are isolated from their friends, adapting to online schooling and other mentally straining repercussions from this virus. While many of us are worried about our physical health at this time, we must not overlook our mental health, which is why more than ever it is important for a club like this. Monrovia ASB is hosting our very first blood drive of the year in March at the Living Spaces parking lot as part of our community outreach. During these times, there is a dire need for blood, and anyone in the community can feel free to donate. All safety procedures will be met, and it is an easy way to give back and do your part for this pandemic. During my last board meeting, I talked about the negative side effects of increasing school hours for our secondary students. However, some parents and educators seem to persist that this would be a positive change. It has been brought to our students' attention, and there are parents emailing. It has been brought to our students' attention that there are parents emailing and insisting on increasing school hours. And although their opinions are valid, I believe it is important to acknowledge that the circumstances are different for every family. I encourage you to look into these parents emailing. Are these parents of low-income families? Do these parents have only one kid? I would also like to suggest that a survey go out to all the families asking if they would like to increase school hours to see where the majority of our families' concerns are currently at. Perhaps the reason more parents do not even to argue the topic of increasing the school hours is because they're too busy working a job and trying to be a fill-in teacher for their children as well. As we start to build communications lines between the ASB class and the school board, I would like to suggest that once again we create a webinar for our MHS students to make sure their voices are being heard, as well as being understanding of everything going on. As we are having students receive important emails from the school board. I believe students would love to be involved in between this loop between the parents and the school board about our schools. I understand that that our parents continue to receive questionnaires about if they would like to. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I understand that our parents continue to receive questionnaires about whether they would like for us to return in a hybrid model or continue to distance learning. But if you can ask our students to do the same questions, I'm sure this can help with the planning process for the rest of the semester. Our students at MHS are very passionate and would love the chance to express their emotions and thoughts to you through an open questionnaire. The first questionnaire we received this school year, back in December, answered your questions on how we felt about Monday seminar class. In the near future, an open questionnaire where students can express however they feel without answering any formulated questions would allow for our students to express their true emotions and thoughts. I would hope that with all this given information that you can all collaboratively be able to use our students' voices and to benefit our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado. I do want to give Dr. Tarosian an opportunity to point out the different steps that we have taken since your initial report out December 9th. Dr. Tarosian, please.
Thank you, President Travanti, members of the board and community. The real focus for our student outreach has been school-centered, because every school has its own unique components. And so principals at the middle schools and at the high schools have been making more of a concerted effort for outreach, hence the survey through the social science classes, which were incorporated into the task force meeting last week, and which Dr. Jackson will incorporate in his presentation today. So our outreach efforts will continue. I, as well as Dr. Jackson, really enjoyed attending the ASB class. I think we'll be able to provide them with some additional information and clarity about, who has authority to do what. We have our guidelines and parameters as districts. We comply with the LA County Department of Public Health and the California Department of Public Health, as well as the laws of the state of California. And so making sure that all of those parameters are clearly explained and communicated. And that's really what we want is to be able to engage all students. I will, just to bring it all together, provide the board with a little more information about some of those outreach efforts with the principals, because students can make the greatest impact locally, working with their leadership teams and working through the processes together. Every school is different, and at the district level, we look at an entirety as opposed to the locality. And it might be beneficial to invite our principals, especially our middle school and high school principals, to the meeting to simply talk about some of the efforts on each campus. I've met with them multiple times now just to be intentional and thoughtful about what we can do next, not only in the short term about engaging our students and making sure that the student voice is evident and informs our discussion, but also planning for that long term, for especially promotions and graduations, which will be upon us sooner than we think, and we're hopeful to make some lasting memories for our students and with our students, bringing in their voice.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Tarosian. And I just want to reiterate that we as a board are committed to our students, as well as parents and community and staff. And you saw that early in January when all 5 board members were present for that meeting for the ASB leadership. And we truly appreciated that opportunity to hear you. We also received the results of the survey, and many of us spent hours this weekend reviewing the survey results because we don't take it lightly. So thank you, Mr. Delgado. I did have a question, though, regarding the blood drive that you announced. Do you have a specific date, time? I know you in your board report, you gave the location, but do you have an actual date? And who are you partnering with? Is it the Red Cross or is it City of Hope?
We partner with the Red Cross. So I know last week, the guy that helps us with the Red Cross was supposed to come, but he didn't end up coming. So we're probably going to meet with him on Friday and discuss a date from there.
Okay, and then you'll kind of send out a flyer and more information on the date and everything?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Madam President?
Yes.
Can I ask a clarifying question of something that Dr. Thorosian said.
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Thorosian, you said one of the comments that you made was that it would be a good idea to bring in the principals and have a discussion with them, but isn't that something that you are constantly doing? Aren't you constantly in collaboration with all of the site administrators and all of the cabinet and all of the board members to find out exactly what is needed district-wide and site-specific all the time?
That's absolutely true. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. What I was suggesting is if each principal were to have a moment during a board meeting as part of my pandemic update to provide a school-specific overview of what each principal is doing, and know that this is a school district, a unified school district, so that our principals, our administrators are working collaboratively. They meet to discuss and brainstorm ideas and then take it back to their respective teams and come back again. So it might be interesting for the board to hear from the principals directly, as opposed to having me translate for them and provide that overview. Their voice is so much more compelling.
But we do always hear their voices through you. So, and both are welcome.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Delgado. Appreciate your words. We'll go ahead and move on to the superintendent report.
Thank you, President Travanti, members of the board. I have a special guest with us today who is going to help me with the board report. We are moving into February, Black History Month, and the chair of the Black History Month activities with the Monrovia Duarte Black Alumni Association, Barbara Golar, has partnered with us for many years. Actually, she and I, as we were talking together, reminisced that it's been 8 years that we've been working together to make February a special month and make sure that the activities are meaningful and memorable. So, Ms. Golar, would you mind helping me with my report here?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Thorosian, and thank you so much. I welcome this opportunity. I cannot believe it's been 8 years for our children's festival that we've had. So I'm going to start off and share with you the events. We're going to start off on Saturday, February 6th. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. February 6th, it's our kickoff scholarship fundraiser. And we're so excited because we do have a couple of our former scholarship recipients coming back and speaking. Layla Spicer and Daylon Dickerson will be speaking. And the theme actually for this year is Black Family Reputation, Identity, and Diversity. And what the committee decided this year is to focus on Black families in Monrovia and Duarte. So each of our events will be featuring some families. And throughout the rest of the year, we'll be featuring 3 to 4 families a month on our website. And the next Saturday, the following Saturday, the 13th, is our health and wellness of the African American family. That particular event will be focusing on mental health. And we do have some guest speakers that actually has worked with Reverend Bell at AME in Monrovia here. So they came highly recommended. So we'll be working with them. And we also have Carol McGroger. Actually, I had her on my show a couple of times, and she's from the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. And then our last event, these events that I'm sharing are open to the public. Our last event is celebrating family life. And that I'm really excited about that. Actually, I'm excited about all of them. Really excited about that is that we will actually be conducting a workshop, and we're looking at the images and the reality of the Black family. And like I said, again, we'll be focusing on featuring families in our own community. Also with, like I stated before, it's been 8 years that we've had our Children's Art Festival. And last year was unbelievable. We probably had the most that we've ever had in a long time. And it's been really, really nice having Sarah. I think that was either her second year working with us. So it's just, we just really have come together. And also want to let you know, once COVID hit, we went immediately into high gear. So we had been talking with Patrick even before school was out last year, coming up with all these different scenarios and what we had to do. So, but this year it's going to be Sarah will be putting together a video, and Sharon Morris and myself will be introducing and thanking people. And then hopefully that actually will go out to all the different school sites. Also, that's with the elementary schools. And also with the elementary schools, really excited that we have our very own Ronald Husband. I think he graduated either in 69, because I don't believe he was at the high school when I was there. But anyway, he's the first African-American animator hired at Disney. And so we're going to have we're calling a master class for the 4th and 5th graders. And Ron worked on movies like Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Little Mermaid. The list goes on and on. And so I'm so excited that our kids right here in Monrovia have the opportunity to be taught by a master, and of movies that they recognize. And so I'm really excited about that. Now with our middle schools, we are going to have feature of a local family, and Henry Gates has a class for kids learning how to trace their roots. So we're going to take them through that. I'll have more details. Patrick and Sharon and I will be finishing up those tomorrow, actually, with our last meeting. Next, we also will continue to partner up with the library. We also had a very successful last year with the library, and once again we could not let that go of us not participating. So once a week, one of their story times would be featuring a book, and Sharon and I will be introducing the books, and so once a week those children will be getting those. And you get all this information about the public events at the city's putting them out, as well as the community center. And I believe, yes, I think that's it.
Thank you, Barbara Golar. That is a lot to put together. You have a lot of great programs.
I know. I'm so excited, but I can't wait for it to happen.
Right. Looking forward to all the events. And of course, the art festival is going to be different this year. Yeah. Honestly, last year it was standing room only.
Yes.
It has gotten quite popular. So I am looking forward to seeing it in the new format because of the pandemic. But we will pivot back to
Yes.
when everything is safe again.
Yes, yes.
All right.
And
Thanks for being here, Ms. Golar.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it. Was that it on your report?
Yes, President Travanti, that concludes my report.
All right, we'll move on to public comments. The Board of Education encourages public participation and invites you to share your views with us on school business. Ms. Huff, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda?
There are none.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments for items on the open session agenda?
There are none.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. Hearing none, we will close the public comment section and move on to Dr. Tarosian, Teaching and Learning Pandemic Update. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Travanti, members of the board, community. Today's presentation really provides an overview and takes some of the information from 2 weeks ago at our last board meeting and provides just a little bit more. Next slide, please. First, always the reminder, stay safe at home, at work. Please, we're working through this and we want to make sure that everybody does whatever they can to stay healthy, and that means staying home when they're not feeling so healthy. Next slide. During our last board meeting, I provided a list of activities that are allowable on campus according to the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. So this slide identifies all the things that are allowable, and the next slide will identify the things that we are doing. And you'll see that comparison. So learning pods and targeted specialized instruction for high need students, in-person assessments, standardized testing, athletic conditioning, and in-person instruction for TK2 if the waiver had already been approved. During this latest surge, the Department of Public Health stated very clearly that they will not even review any new waivers at this time. And our waiver, of course, has not yet been submitted as our hybrid model has not yet been developed. But through this list, what I will do is identify we are doing everything else allowable on our campuses. Next slide. We have our learning pods with our students and staff. I'm going to update each time to make sure that I'm showing growth and real-time information. Our in-person assessments for special education students, we've had a few more. And just yesterday, we offered PSAT at Monrovia High School for 107 students. Of course, students seated 6 feet apart minimally in well-ventilated classrooms. Again, it's allowable, and we want to make sure that our students have access. Mr. Hammond, was that a question?
Question, just real quick, just so I understand. We have 130 kids in pods with 61 staff doing that. Is it a different staff of 60 for special ed? So all told, we have 121 staff members working between those two?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. The learning pods, we have learning pods for special education students and regular education students. Those are all combined in that first line, and the number of staff are full-time and part-time staff members. So the total is 61. The in-person assessments, different from the learning pods. This is to assess students where they are and what their needs are. Those are for special education students specifically. And that is not usually more than, that is not a daily occurrence as the learning pods are.
What I guess I'm trying to ask is there any duplication between the 61 and the 60?
There is none.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. I don't know why this is all in bold, probably because I had room on the slide. So please don't take that as an exclamation. But On January 19th, we did receive from CIF Southern Section that fall sports championships will be canceled. CIF governs those championship games, and because of the varying tiers in the Southern Section, it's clear that safe interactions between schools would not occur, and so championships have been canceled. They did say that when conditions allow, and that really those conditions are determined by in our case, LA County Department of Public Health, when conditions allow, member schools may schedule individual contests. The letter, or perhaps a subsequent letter, also stated that if we engage in individual contests when it's not allowed, or do anything that violates the expectation of safety, we would be suspended from CIF. They also identified some season end dates. Girls volleyball and girls and boys water polo, March 20th. Cross country is March 27th, and April 17th, football. Spring sports, they stated that we'd be receiving an update in April about spring sports. Next slide, please. So we are allowed athletic conditioning. In our fall sports, we have some sports, football and water polo and volleyball have begun and suspended, and they are going to begin again. Those dates are being determined right now at the school level. Robotics as a sport will begin Tuesday, February 2nd, and band is also one of those that we will determine as we get closer. Band has some unusual requirements in order to make sure that our students and staff remain safe. With each, let's go to the next slide, and then I will provide that additional information. Our spring sports, some of our teams, most of our teams, it's to be determined when they will begin sports. They're working, the coaches are working, the athletic director is working, and the administrators are working to determine where and when. And they are all working with our district nurse to make sure that the protocols are in place in order to make sure that all students are safe. You know, this is just conditioning. Where they're not necessarily playing or sharing equipment, or if they are, equipment is being wiped down. Masks, unless it's heavy exertion, we're following all of the protocols. And so it's important to have those in place if we are to keep our students and our staff safe. And so really, thank you to our district nurse, Deneen, who is new this year and has done an extraordinary job with the assistance, of course, of Katrina, who was our interim district nurse. Next slide, please. As I committed to last board meeting, our transmission rate on campus, the only change is that we have 3 more positive staff members since our last meeting, bringing that total up to 34. However, staff-to-staff transmissions remain constant. So that transmission of the additional 3 was not necessarily on campus. Next.
Dr. Rosian,
yes.
Before you move on to the next slide, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to expand on this. I think it's important to mention the reason so many of these lines are 0 is because of the safety protocol that has been put into place. And I just want to re-emphasize that, because I know that the district is watching everything very carefully and monitoring and metering everything very carefully so that there isn't transmission, maintaining the pods, maintaining the cohorts, and watching everything very carefully. And these zero numbers are to be commended, and the commendation is in the protocol that has been put in place for the safety. So
Correct. Yeah. And you know, every one of us plays a role. Oh, that's going to be awkward. Every one of us plays a role in the safety. Excuse me.
It's not me.
I apologize. The protocols are incredibly important for us. We also know that despite our best efforts, there is a chance that there will be transmission. So we know that this is not a guarantee. However, this is our best effort in making sure that everybody remains safe. And those protocols are, we follow them strictly. And the best way to do that is to make sure that everybody knows everybody plays a role in keeping them. Next slide, please. During our last board meeting, I referenced Governor Newsom's proposal about opening up schools, in-person instruction. Again, everybody would have the option to remain in distance learning or in an independent study environment, but his proposal is to make sure that that option exists and to phase in other grade levels as conditions allow. So we've created a new color, deep purple, with this recent surge in Los Angeles County, but the idea of the proposal is to bring students in as conditions allow in terms of the virus and the transmission rates. One of the requirements is that all students be allowed to be tested, both adults and children. The cost of this testing, of course, would be covered by the district. And we are investigating potential partners for testing to determine the cost of that. There's some funding connected with it, and to be eligible for that funding, at the top tier of that funding is that we would need to submit our COVID safety plan, as well as come to an agreement with both of our associations and develop those protocols and a hybrid model by February 1st. That doesn't mean we would open February 1st. It simply means that everything would be in place. And February 1st is around the corner, and I will confidently say that we will not meet all three of those requirements at this time. However, those are the things that we need to do in order to make sure that we are ready to open when it is safe to do so. So we are currently looking at a hybrid model, especially targeting the elementary schools, because those would be the levels that would open first, according to this proposal. Working with our associations to come to an agreement, and of course, looking at the new safety regulations by the state. And there is a great deal of overlap between our current COVID management plan that the board approved about a month ago and the COVID mitigation plan that the board approved, as well as these new requirements. We need to do that, again, because it connects with our priority with safety. Governor Newsom's proposal still needs to be approved by the legislature. It has not. The funding of it also needs to be approved. It has not. But this is the discussion, and I feel it incumbent upon me to make sure that we are informed and prepared for when things and conditions change.
Dr. Terosian. Ms. Lockerbie, you had something. Go ahead and go first. Can't hear you.
Sorry. You had mentioned, you said that adults and children have the opportunity to be tested on a regular basis. I want to clarify that because my understanding is they are mandated to be tested. Is my understanding correct?
That was not my understanding.
It is not your understanding that they are mandated. They just have to have the opportunity.
We would need to allow all students and all staff members to test. In fact, depending upon the level, right now it would be weekly because of the level of COVID cases in our county. So weekly testing of all students and all staff members. And my understanding is that they would be allowed to decline, but that the testing would exist. Now, again, these are all proposals, and I can certainly go back and confirm that as well. Ms. Loggerby.
Yes, Mr. Hammond.
Just to expand on that, we get a little bit of money, but we don't get enough money to cover the cost of the testing. So it actually puts us in a negative position.
Right now, because of the numbers that we're seeing in terms of the testing, then the cost of testing and the number of staff and students, yes, we would be in the red. We would lose money on that proposition.
Ms. Anderson?
So to clarify, this still needs approval. It is January 27th, and this would go into effect, I believe that's Monday. So to be eligible for funding, people or districts have to provide the 3 requirements that you've outlined there by Monday, even though this is yet to be passed into law. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and that's really part of the discussion at the legislative level right now. That
what point do they intend to meet to pass or not pass this legislation? I'm not sure if after February 1st?
It is very likely it'll be after February 1st, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And it is very likely that they'll go back to the drawing board on this and have to look at a different timeline than what was originally provided, because it's definitely a very complex situation.
Well, it does seem a little bit concerning that they can't pass the law before we're expected to get the paperwork turned in, because they could change that, right? I mean, if the requirements
change, board, Jennifer.
What's that?
Welcome to the school board.
Well, I don't think that's our requirement.
No, this is how we have to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding and not missing something. So thank you.
And Mr. Hammond made a good point. The extra grant money that would be provided to districts was really a carrot kind of dangled in front of us with all these requirements that it's just impossible to achieve. So let's hope that the minds in Sacramento think about this and change the timeline and the requirements.
Yeah. It would be helpful for us as educators to be able to focus on the education of our students as opposed to the testing of our students. Yeah. Next slide, please. One of the things that I highlighted during our last board meeting was that at the secondary level, the hybrid model has taken kind of a backseat. What we are focusing on right now is to increase and make the most of our distance learning with our students, to make sure that our students are getting the most face time with their teachers, making the most effective use of the time currently allotted. And that's really what our secondary task force has been focusing and exploring over the last few weeks. And to provide a little more information about that and the progress that the secondary task force is making is my friend and colleague, Dr. Darvin Jackson, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. He has been leading the secondary task force and will walk us through the remainder of this presentation. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Terosian. As mentioned previously, the secondary task force is made up of parents, students, staff members, and administrators, totaling somewhere between 25 and 30 individuals. So well representative of our community here in the Monrovia Unified School District. As you indicated, several of our conversations and or meetings have occurred since we returned on January 4th, whether in the secondary task force or at the site levels. Students, parents, and staff have weighed in on the issue of adjusting the current secondary schedule for providing additional instructional minutes. Considering the breadth and depth of these conversations, the consensus was to maintain the current instructional schedule. And based on that outcome, the main objective was identified. And Dr. Terosian just indicated, focus on refining the current schedule to provide for quality teacher and student contact, that effective use of the current time, and then reviewing that social emotional learning time on Mondays. The schedule would continue to incorporate planning and professional learning community time for teachers to support this effort. Many of the parents on the secondary task force also supported this sentiment. In addition, results from a student survey that was conducted earlier, we had MHS Associated Student Body President Antonio Delgado on, as he mentioned earlier. Results were close to 800 students responding to the survey. And I wanted to touch specifically on two of the prompts provided to the students this evening. I know board members mentioned that they had an opportunity over the weekend to really delve into the results, but I wanted to highlight two specifically. Next slide, please. So here you see just a data representative of the students. This survey was a joint creation between the social science teachers at MHS as well as some students, so that we ensure that there was voice in this process. The slide is representative of a number of students from each grade level that participated. And I think there are about 1,500 students at Monrovia, so it's close to almost half of the students represented there. Next slide. As the topic,
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Dr. Jackson, if you would go back a slide. So this was a survey given to all to MHS, not all MHS students, but to MHS students?
To MHS student. It did not include the middle schools.
Right. And this was given, so the percentages that I'm seeing here, that's the percentage of the 9th grade, 10th grade, et cetera, students that participated in this survey.
Yes.
And it was given during social science class?
That I would have to follow up.
No, that's okay. I was just trying to clarify. That's okay.
Okay.
It was through social science classes, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Excuse me. I'll let you continue.
Okay. So as the topic was focused on instructional minutes, students were asked in this case, which do you prefer? Fewer classes, longer periods, which had been a topic of discussion, leaving the current schedule as is, but refining it, and then more classes per day, but shorter periods. And we had looked at multiple schedules from varying districts that had implemented various examples or renditions of a schedule. And again, the overwhelming response here in Monrovia was to leave the current schedule as is. I think with close to 85% responding to that particular question.
If I hear that right, Darvin, it is 85% of the 50% that responded.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. So this is a snapshot of a sentiment on campus. It'd be interesting to see, Dr. Tarosi and I had an opportunity, as we discussed earlier, to meet with ASB, but similar sentiments were coming forward. I think Antonio mentioned, it would be beneficial, again, to try to reach out and see if we could have additional input from those who may have missed an opportunity to provide that feedback. Next slide. They were also asked if the school day was extended to add more instructional time in class, how much time would you like to see added? And I know in a previous board meeting, we talked about adding various minutes. And again, an overwhelming percent of the 50% that responded that indicated no change. The survey also included an opportunity towards the end to complete a free write response where students were able to respond in a manner not to a question, but just how they were feeling. And in looking at many of the responses, I thought one of the student responses was captured by the following statement. Our focus in increasing distance education quality should be trying to make the most of the in-class times teachers already have by encouraging teachers to give lectures over Zoom and save activities and practice for homework instead of vice versa. Let the teachers teach in the time they have. Learning without the teacher is frustrating, and is even more frustrating to sit through extraneous assignments during class when we could be having valuable time learning from our teachers. And I think that's just indicative of distance learning and tying back to that, them wanting that quality time, that quality interaction with them, and not representative of all teachers in Monrovia at the secondary level, but reducing that time where you may have some paper and pencil activities in extended videos versus that interaction with the teacher.
Ms. Lockerbie?
Can I ask a question? Dr. Jackson, that statement that you just read, was that a general statement of input from the students?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a reoccurring theme, essentially?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next slide. So, in the most recent secondary meeting, we referenced this picture to visualize what was needed at the secondary level. We have been talking about increasing minutes and ensuring that they were equal, at the secondary level, but we know that equal is not equal for all. And so through several discussions, we drilled down to identify that we have students with varying needs. And the conversations touched upon, our AP and honor students, our students who are meeting expectations, but are not necessarily in that honors AP realm. And then our struggling students. And so a focus on providing equitable access within the current structure. So as indicated here, on the far right, there are students that may need even more support than others to gain that access. I initially touched upon the current interest mentioned at the secondary task force. Another key consideration was minimizing Zoom fatigue. Parents, students, and teachers indicating more time on Zoom could prove to be counterproductive by increasing class time. And that was more so focused on, in some sense, students that are already struggling, in that 60-minute period may be off-putting to move to that 75 or 90 minutes. And again, I know that was a discussion in one of our previous board meetings in December. And so we transitioned to how can we make this structure better? And it turned into more of a think tank. We had the opportunity of board member Jennifer Anderson sitting on as a liaison to the board, but she was also prior to her election on this task force, as a parent, and so she's serving in both capacities. Focusing on more target instruction. Student indicating, as I previously said, more time and interaction with the teacher via lectures and questions and answers, which would allow them to work more independently when not in the presence of the teacher. They are aware that office hours are available, but there needs to be a better effort made to identify those who are truly in need and to get those students there. These conversations have already started. So, some teachers have already started writing individualized invitations for students, and they've seen an increase in attendance. A parent shared at the task force that, at the 9th and 10th grade level, not necessarily at that level, but this notion that we do have shy students, and they've not had the opportunity to personally meet their teachers other than through Zoom. And so they thought reaching out individually could help build that connectivity bridge. Counselors, I'm hearing counselors have started to pop in coordinating with teachers into some of the breakout rooms and creating individual breakout rooms for them to be able to meet with students in a one-on-one manner while they're there, versus having to try to track them down after hours. Again, this is something new that they've been trying here as we've come back to school. Providing parents and students clarification as to the purpose of the office hours was identified as a need. Something that was highlighted was the fact that, the term office hours in some sense is a college term, because most students have most professors have office hours at colleges, and not to assume that every parent and or student can relate to that terminology. And so that need for wanting that clarification there. I know one school has already released a video. I think it went out on Friday, clarifying the purpose, having received that specific feedback. And I know other sites haven't heard that. We're going to follow suit with something that they felt was pertinent to their sites. AP teachers are in the process of redefining how they use their time as well, from that 1 to 3 to extend learning opportunities through activities, labs, etc. And additionally, I think earlier this week, there was a conversation at the sites at Monrovia High School specifically with regards to AP, potentially using some of that time on Monday in the afternoon to provide some additional extension in enrichment. Next slide. So what's next? Site admin and teachers, as you've been hearing, they are already in. They've been in the process of having conversations since we returned. So finalizing and implementing the initial actionable steps as to how we can better support our students and make this structure better. From an accountability standpoint, they will be coming back. We have, as I said prior, teachers and site administrators on the secondary meeting. So as we've done in the past, giving them the opportunity to share what those actionable steps are. And then having them continue to refine their processes being ongoing, just based on the data, what they're seeing, and how they can continue to improve it. I think one of the other things, it's not on here, that I like to mention is just, we've been talking about student voice. And so when Dr. Tarosian and I met earlier today with the ASB group, we extended an offer to at least have an opportunity for some student representation from the sites. And we'd also do that. We think middle school students are just as articulate to be able to sit in a conversation. We have some very firm time frames for our secondary meeting, 3 to 4:30. And so in that time frame, very rich discussions, but very targeted. We know people have many other tasks and responsibilities. And so we want to honor their time, at the same time make sure that we're addressing the issues that have come forward. So we extended that to ASB at the high school, and we'll be doing so at the middle schools in the coming days. And then lastly, reconvening our subcommittee that initially started work on developing the hybrid model. We know that we need to be out of deep purple and purple for grades 7 through 12 to be able to return in a hybrid model. We know it's an interest of the community, the board, the superintendent. So we are set to have some follow-up discussions here in the coming weeks on developing our hybrid model with an ensuing presentation as far as outcomes or options to the board. Our next secondary meeting is February 2nd, which is about a week away.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, and thank you, Dr. Tarosian. Any questions from the board?
There's actually just one more slide, if we could just get to that, to just talk our goal and our priority has always been a student-centered approach. How are we taking care of the whole student? And you've heard a little bit about the instruction and the engagement efforts on campus. Just as a reminder, we're also working on mitigating food insecurity through our food services department. Mental health and wellness, whether it's our counselors, our counseling interns, which is an extraordinary network developed, really spearheaded by Dr. Real, and our school psychologists, our community partners with DeVille, Care Solace, which is access 24/7 for not only our students, but our staff members and parents, and doing those student wellness checks regularly. These are the priorities for our students, to take care of that whole child, not just the instruction, but we know that it takes so many different lenses in order to provide that physical and emotional support for our students to flourish in any environment. And we're doing the best we can to make this one a safe and inviting one.
Anderson?
I just wanted to check in on the student wellness checks. How are they being performed? How frequently? How are we following up on those students?
Why don't I bring that back to you? Because we have a whole protocol in place for specific students, as well as students who we may learn may be in crisis. So there are different protocols for different tiers. It would be part of that multi-tiered system of support that we provide. And probably best to provide that in its entirety.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Golar, did you have something? Okay.
Yeah, so I was just, for clarification's sake, are we saying that there's going to be a presentation specifically on what those protocols in detail look like? Is that what's going to be provided? Okay, so excellent, because I had the same thought. So Excellent.
Is that the last slide?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tarosian. Ms. Lockerbie, you had a question?
I did. Thank you. If I could ask the question of Dr. Jackson. Hi again.
I'm here. Hi.
When you were first starting your presentation, you said you're looking at identifying things and reviewing some things like the social emotional learning Monday. It's two questions surrounding that. Is the social emotional learning Monday, is that in high school also?
Yes.
So it's high school and middle school.
Yes.
So when you say reviewing that, please tell me specifically what you mean by that. Are you reviewing how long it would be, where it would be, if it would stay? What does that mean?
All of the above. If it would stay, I think there's a sentiment, specifically what we are hearing from students for sure, the need for mental health support. Here we are, the last slide. Our community partners with DeVere and Care Solis and the student wellness checks, et cetera. I think the need identified there is how can we better serve, how can we have that SEL period better serve our students in that time frame. So that's one. Two, looking at the time of it. I know Dr. Rial spoke a little bit to it when we met last week, and she indicated it is new. The curriculum's new, but distance learning is new in some sense. And so just again, seeking to refine so that people are receiving what they need. And I'll have more detail on that one, on that aspect, because we spent the bulk of the time focused on the instructional piece initially, and that would also be another next step for us. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I wanted to just highlight, I think it was in the previous screen or maybe 2 slides before, but on targeted office hours, I just want to make sure that that the public knows that that idea was actually born from that meeting that the board had with the ASB leadership and how to draw students into the office hours. And one example that comes to mind is a math teacher who may identify a formula or a problem that students are particularly struggling in and can make that announcement. Today's office hours or this afternoon's office hours will be focused on working through this type of problem. And that came from the ASB leadership meeting. So nice to see that we're going forward with that idea.
Thank you for bringing that forward. That was a specific example that was mentioned in one of our last meetings as well.
All right, great. Thanks for the report. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to consent agenda. Routine items, business placed on the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion and a second, please.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Okay, I heard a motion and a second. Ms. Huff, can you please call the roll?
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Golar?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Hammond?
Yes.
Board President Travanti?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. And we'll go ahead and, if you're following the agenda, we're going to action items. And first on the action item is under business services with Ms. Wu, who will discuss the resolution to authorize issuance of the 2021 tax and revenue anticipation notes, otherwise known as TRANS. Ms. Wu?
Yes, good evening, Board President, Ms. Travanti, board members, Superintendent Dr. Tarosian, and committee member staffs. As I report to the board, when the governor approved the state budget for 2021 fiscal year, he has a lot of cash deferral. So when he released the preliminary budget for the 21-22 state budget, although the increased state revenue projection, he buy down some of the deferral. However, the deferral starting next month, which is February 21 to the end of this school year, which is to June 21, has not been buy down. So this deferral still exists, which means that the district will not receive all the payment from the state for our apportionment. So this will definitely have impact for our obligation, pay our employee, both classified certificate on time, as well as their benefit, and as well as our regular operation costs, such as utilities. Although the school is closed, but we still have staff working in the office. We still have learning costs. So we still are obligated to pay those kind of costs. So right now we do the estimate, and there's a possibility that around June we may running out of cash. So which means that in order to meet our obligation, the legal and Mr. Huff, next slide, please. Legal and the LA County Treasurer and the tax collector, they have teamed to hold on the TRAM program. So this program is help the district and community college in the legal. So give them opportunity to issue the chance and their meet their cash requirement. So TRAN is basically short-term borrowing. It's a vehicle, has been existing for a long, long time. And in the history of our district, we had a board-approved resolution, and sometimes we never use it, and sometimes we almost use it. So by board approve this resolution, give the district flexibility. So the legal will have some TRAN available in February, in April. So we will closely monitor our cash flow. And then if we do need it, then we have a board approval on hand, then we will jump into the participation. So we estimate that right now the cost is around $20,000. The actual cost, it will depend on the TRAN we participated and the actual interest rate of that TRAN. So that all the information, I am anticipate that there will be a lot of local school district participate because we're on the same boat. If the state did not send a check to Monrovia, it will not send a check to all the California school districts. So we just prepare ahead to make sure that district obligation to our staff will be met, although we did not receive payment, but we will still make sure that each of the district employee receive their paychecks. And we also pay our vendors.
Thank you, Ms. Wu. It's important for the public to understand that this is not something that Monrovia Unified created. This was something that we knew going in with the new budget, and that the state was put all districts in this position to have to potentially borrow to make sure that our bills are paid, and we want to make sure we're fiscally sound. Again, this is not something that your department or Monrovia Unified, it's not unique to us. This is happening to all the districts. Any questions for Ms. Wu? Ms. Lockerbie?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wu. I want to ask some clarifying questions because we all understand what deferrals mean, and we understand what TRAN means, and we understand what LACO means and all of these things. But I just want to make it as simple as possible for the community listening. So you say there is still the opportunity for a deferral to exist until the end of the year. That is correct?
That's correct.
And so just to be clear, a deferral is basically an IOU.
That's
correct.
correct.
So we're anticipating funds from the state funds and federal funds, and because of our current financial situation, they're likely to hand us an IOU. No cash, IOU, correct?
That's correct. It's
Okay.
invisible IOU. Say, okay, you will get money, but not now.
But
Later.
not now.
Mhm.
And so in order to cover the our operating costs, we essentially need to take out a loan. And that's what TRAN is a loan. It's a loan from LACO, which is LA County Office of Education. And just like any loan, it has a fee. And that's what that approximate $20,000 is, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We're looking, you're asking to do this through LACO. Are you doing this through LACO because LACO will give us a better interest rate than a bank, or are we required to do this through LACO?
So we are not required to go through LACO. LACO is only one of the organization, and they have other organization such as from the state. But we get information. LACO is our county, and that's the number one. So they have our interest in their hand because we're members. Mm-hmm. So also that the LACO, based on the initial comparison with the LACO's consultant, we feel that the cost-wise, the LACO TRAN insurance maybe will a little bit less compared with TRAN offer from the Sacramento, some other private agency or public agency.
Okay.
So that's
so you're saying we would get a better deal essentially going through LACO than going through Sacramento or another agency. And that's why you're looking at that, because that is the most fiscally responsible place to go to look for what is essentially a loan.
That's correct.
Thank you. Last question. Do you know when the deferral gets paid? If we're handed a deferral, does it come with a pay date?
They when the state gave us a deferral, they have a schedule. For example, we know that June deferral will be paid in July, May will pay August, right. April will pay October, and February will pay November. Okay. But this schedule they gave us, there's no explanation why they arrange that way. Mm-hmm. So if the board interested to know why they make such arrangement, then I will find that information for you guys.
No, my question was just if we have a date, and now I do remember seeing that before. So thank you for letting me ask you all of these clarifying questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Goller.
Thank you, Board President Travanti. I am curious. I thought I heard you say we're not clear what the interest rate will be yet. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct. Ms. Goller, just like a mortgage, if we refinance our mortgage, the interest rate is on the day we are closing.
In terms of the market.
Yes, that's exactly, because if we go out to issue TRAN in February, the interest will be different if we go out in March, or even in the same month, different day, you will have different interest. That's exactly what I mean. It's all dependent on our actual date we are joining the issue.
I see. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that clarification. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Mr. Hammond?
Since 1978, school districts have been reliant upon Sacramento to fully fund them for the operations of public education. We do not set how we get our own money. But the problem with this is we don't get money on a regular basis to pay our bills. And then we're forced into a situation where we have to borrow money and then spend our scarce resources on interest on money that should have come to us. It's very much like if you worked for somebody and you had a scheduled payment for your payday and you weren't paid on time, you'd have to go out and borrow money in order to make sure your house ran. It's basically unfair. Tonight, I don't agree with trans. I'm not going to try to talk anybody out of anything because we need to do these, but this is a patently unfair system that's taking scarce resources and redirecting it into borrowing money that we shouldn't have to borrow to begin with. And so I just wanted to say that out loud because it's going to be reflected in my vote tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Appreciate your comments. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Huff, can you call roll, please?
Board Member Golar,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
I really so much appreciate what you said, Mr. Hammond, because in my opinion, it's truth that this is not fair, that our government is giving us an IOU to pay for education. And I agree that this is an upside down situation. And I don't like being in it, but it is the situation that we are in. And I need to have our options open. And so therefore I am voting yes.
Board Member Hammond,
No.
Board Member Anderson.
I want to echo Mrs. Lockerbie's statements and thank Mr. Hammond for his as well. I find myself in the same situation, and that while I loathe having to do this, I also want to make sure that we protect our people and don't put our personnel in jeopardy. So for that reason, I will vote yes.
Board President Travanti.
I agree with the sentiments before me. I don't agree with how Sacramento does business and puts us in these positions. However, I do not want to have the district suffer or the personnel suffer the repercussions of not taking this action. So my vote is yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Huff. Next on the agenda is a board discussion on district marketing efforts I'll turn over to Dr. Tarosian.
Thank you, President Travanti, members of the board. This has been a line item on our pending board issues for quite some time. And I thought now that we are together, we may have an opportunity to simply talk about our, whether it's our marketing efforts or our communication efforts, how we want our publicity, marketing, communications, internal and external. What are the board's priorities about this so that we can make sure to align our actions with those priorities. So this is really simply a discussion item about the communication from the school district.
All right, so any comments, any questions from anybody?
Well, let me start. Let's get this started.
Okay.
When we first brought this as an item for pending board issues, it was to be more strategic about the time we have and what were the priorities of the board. Was it the website? Was it marketing for enrollment? We began the discussion about marketing because of enrollment. And so that's what precipitated this conversation, but the board has also expressed their interest in making sure that we are publicizing our events and communicating to our community at large. So what exactly are the priorities, and we'll be taking notes.
Oh, I have a comment. Obviously, we need someone to be able to handle social media, press releases, events that we have, like the state of the schools address, and that's a heavy lift item. Currently, our marketing group has been handling that. What is your vision of bringing in someone on staff to handle that? I'm not sure where.
I'm not prepared to even discuss that part of this.
Okay.
What I'm interested in is what are the priorities of the board, and based upon the priorities of the board, then we'll discuss the manner in which we can meet those interests.
I have
Ms. Lockerbie?
Comments. I don't know if they're comments or questions. I am perpetually frustrated when I go onto Facebook and I see community members that don't know something that's going on in the schools. And I want to stress, Dr. Therosian, that my frustration isn't with you, because I know that you and your cabinet try very hard, but the efforts, the great efforts that you and your staff have gone to need to be reevaluated, because there are still, it's surprising, but there are still a large group of people, of our district families, that aren't getting information. So, and I know we do phone blasts. I know we do, we have a website, we have a, Twitter. You have the reports that go out via email, and we have Parent Square, but there's still this population that we haven't captured. And it's frustrating for me, because I want to make sure that everybody is completely informed. And so we need to look at something differently. We need to look at what we're doing differently. And I'm not saying that anyone is right or wrong, but we do need to look at it differently, because we do still have a part of our community that is not getting that information. And if they're on Facebook, then they've got social media, and they've got technology. So why isn't getting to them? So that's I'll add to the snowball with that comment or open-ended question.
Ms. Golar.
Excuse me for my lack of ability to really talk about marketing. I mean, that's folks have degrees in professional pathways in terms of marketing. And when I think of marketing, I think of sales, that you're selling something, you're putting something out there for knowledge sake of what you're trying to attract or draw attention to. But it reminds me of selling. What I see is a difference between goals and efforts of marketing versus communication, right? So having students who lack information about what is available to them, or parents or community, in terms of understanding what is available within the district, I'm confused as to what is strategic in terms of marketing goals and targets versus effective vehicles for communication. So I need a little bit more background and understanding of, was there a marketing analysis, right? In terms of what things have been put out there and what has it yielded in terms of who is it reaching? Who is it not reaching? Who is it geared to reach? You know, I think usually when you have a marketing campaign, you kind of predetermine your audience. who you're trying or attempting to touch base with, versus when you're doing a communication thing, that's a whole different set of actions and behaviors. So in order to answer your question that you posed of us, discuss what are the district's marketing efforts in determining our marketing goals, I need more information.
If I can, I actually hold one of those degrees.
Well, there you go.
and it's pretty simple. The marketing is the process of identifying the customer's needs and determining how to fill it. And the advertising is how to promote what the company has to offer for sale. They're not the same. They're used interchangeably, but they're completely different. So if we attack it from that, yeah, I actually got a bachelor's degree in public relations and marketing. That's so.
And who's your knowing who your audience is going to be for that particular marketing?
You're trying to find out what they need, and that's right. Your marketing. So in this going with Celine is we need to find out what the outreach is, and you go from that direction. And then once you find what the need is, then you go about advertising to fill the need.
Right. Well, and then we're also talking about two different things. We're talking about internal and external. So internal, how do we communicate with who's here? And external is I guess we're marketing. We're communicating internal and external, and we're marketing internal and external, right? So we're marketing. Are we marketing to internal, or are we just marketing external?
The communications usually come from Dr. Tarosian to the staff, so that's internal.
Well, different. So communication is one thing, but for marketing, are we marketing internal and external? I mean, they would be two different things, but are we marketing internally? Do we need to market to our who is already part of the district? Or is that separate and that's communication?
Celine, so I understand, are you asking if we are directly talking to people who are in the district, or are we looking for people outside the district to talk to?
In my head, this is two different things. And this is my head, and this is just what I'm thinking. One is communication. So how we communicate internally to whom we already have, and how we communicate externally, which I guess would be called marketing, because if we're communicating externally, what we're trying to do is draw into our district. Yes? Is there agreement on that?
That's not how I would describe it.
Okay. Well, and then my other question is there marketing based on your definition? Is there marketing that we do internally?
Okay, it's whatever the goal is. I guess that's what Kathy's asking tonight is what's the board's goal? Is the goal of the board to beef up what we do with the people who are already in our district and get that going really well? Or do we continue the path that we're on and reach out for other people to come into the district? We can do whatever we want. There's 5 of us can pretty much do about anything we want here. And so the goal here is, what do the 5 of us want? Celine, and to follow yours, do you think that we do a good job letting people know the service that they are subscribing to, which is Monrovia Unified School District? Do you think we do a good job in outreach to them?
Are you asking me legitimately? No, I don't think we do a good enough job.
So then what we need to do is find out from the people that we expect to use this, how can we get the information to you? That's what we need to find out.
I still think it's two things though. I still think it's internal communication on marketing?
They're not interchangeable parts. We need, once you find out if you found out that 90% of the people got their information from Twitter, and we're doing Facebook because that's easy and convenient for us because we know how to do it, then we're missing the mark.
Right.
And we need to find out how people get their information about Monrovia Unified School District.
Right.
Is it Parent Square? Is it social media? Is it your next door neighbor's best friend's cousin?
Right.
How? And then you can go about developing the plan to get it there. Otherwise, you're just on that treadmill and you're walking, but you're going nowhere.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Right. So, I mean, I hear you. So the question becomes, should we as a board direct our energy towards making sure that we are having the communication internally so we can find out if our efforts are successful or not? But we need to find out. I would agree with you, Celine. I don't think it's successful. I think it's hit and miss at best. It's just not, it was surprising. I'm sitting here at the board meeting and I've been doing this for a little bit. And it was like, how many of the functions that we do have really nothing to do with education? I mean, a school district, you would think their primary goal and our obligation is in making sure that you're educating kids, right? But if you look at the laundry list of things that we're required to do, somewhere number 15 and 16 is actually educating the child. It's very diverse what we have to take on as task. So it's very hard. And I just was thinking about that tonight. I was looking at these things, Kathy, as you were talking about during the what we're doing. So little of our energy is actually spent educating. The rest of it is checking off boxes because we're mandated to do something else. So I don't mean to get on a platform here, but to follow up with Celine, I agree with you. I think that we should first do a stellar job communicating internally. And then once we have that, is to take it and go external with it. So I hope that makes sense to you.
It makes sense, and I don't disagree with you. I still think it's two different things. I still think it's communication that we need to, just like you said, we need to figure out where everyone is and make sure that we're there and make sure that the communication is solid internally. But I still think that marketing is separate and external. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my thoughts on marketing is how we can reach out to outside of the district to entice enrollment. It's
just a different word. It's advertising.
Yeah, I was trying to be careful.
Well, we have a great video that was produced with the inaugural State of the Schools address 2 years ago. That video belongs to our district, and that can be used. Snippets of it or the entire thing. So let's use what we have so we're not paying for anything in addition as far as that marketing piece, at least for, this year, next year when we're in this really tight budget crunch. I'd like to see us use that, and now would be good timing or here soon. The communication piece, we can have the best possible communication, but know that even with that, with all the communication that we're providing there, we still receive the email saying, I don't get any information. I don't get any communication.
Right.
So, it's going to be an effort on everybody's part to be informed and redirecting them to what we already have. The MUSD website has a link to every communication that Dr. Terosian puts out. That also goes out on Parent Square and Student Square. And our Twitter page and our Facebook page pushes out information too, or highlights programs and things like that. I think the one piece in the social media though that's missing is Instagram. Most of our students, or many of our students, are on Instagram. That's the platform that they use. They are not on Facebook. They could care less about Facebook. And I wouldn't go as far as to say TikTok. I'm not recommending that at all, but Instagram is something that I think is lacking in our social media platforms.
So I guess if I can just ask the question of the group, can we give our staff direction that we should become better internally at social media?
I think that needs to be one of them, or one of the items.
I think Kathy's looking for direction. Am I correct, Kathy?
You know what? I think this conversation helps frame what our next steps will be. So I don't necessarily need direction as much as where this discussion is leading us. You know, we had discussed, is this going to be a study session or a discussion here during the regular board meeting? And, you know, the interest of the board was, for the sake of transparency, to make sure that it's embedded within a board meeting itself, to spend the time to do that. And what I can do with the information I have is pull it together to try and determine what our next steps need to be, and incorporate within it some of these ideas about social media, about the communication internally, as well as externally.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I think it might be beneficial for everybody to know why we have VMA. They got here because we were doing a very poor job communicating to the people in our district about what we had going on. I mean, we were not good at all about this. It is not, okay, the superintendent knows everything that's going on in the school district. It does not mean the superintendent is good at reporting about the things that are going on in the school district. It doesn't mean that anybody on the cabinet has that skill either. There is a certain, as Tracy mentioned, there is a skill that goes along with this about how you report it. And so that's why we went looking for a VMA. I think the comment at the time was we were the keeper of our secrets, and we had all these things going on, yet nobody knew about them. And so we hired VMA to help get that word out. Now, VMA, it's morphing now. It's been morphing for the last year and a half. And so we may be outgrowing VMA and their capabilities, and we should start looking how to make it beneficial to what it is our vision looks like for communicating about our successes and what we need to improve on. I think that we can get a lot of support from the community if we're as transparent as possible. And when you're transparent, that means that you're having communication with people in a forum that they value.
Right.
And when we
That's bi-directional.
And when we do that, we will have more people getting on board with what's happening in our school district. But we have to find out where they're getting their information more than anything else.
That's what I really wanted to touch on is, can we investigate? You know, I know you said you're not looking for direction, but can we investigate where everybody is, find out how to get there, and also, are we able to? Are there statistics out there? Who's doing this well? Who's doing this well? Those who have this communication and marketing down really well, are there statistics on that? What are they doing? Can we investigate what other people are doing or what other people know? I know that we have people in our community that have tendrils out into lots of different districts? Can we ask, like Mr. Hammond said, can we ask the community? Are you familiar with another district? What are they doing? What are they doing well? How are they doing that?
Yeah, you asked the question, what forms of social media are you using? What platforms are you using? Jennifer, I saw your hand up.
Thanks. I think my biggest concern is that in the last several months, the communication piece has not been as robust as I would like to have seen it. Often our community members, family, students, parents, community members might not be aware of what's going on behind the scenes, why we're doing things. And this is probably just speaking directly to more communication. And we don't need to parse further, what term. I just want to make sure that we're being as transparent and as clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it. I know the surveys and some are very valuable, but to some, they don't understand the benefit or they're not aware of the benefit, I should say. And it might seem redundant or without purpose. And so that's one example of where I think we need to be very clear and mindful of when we communicate with the public in whatever regard, that they understand that we're not just having a survey because it's the next thing to do, that it's purposeful and all of that data, those comments tonight from the student survey at the high school were a perfect example. It's all really meaningful. And if our community doesn't know that, then all of our best efforts are really being unrecognized and we can't share and learn from each other. So that would be my focus. And when we can handle that, I think we've done probably better on some of our advertising aspects of, or whichever term it is with events. But I really do want to make sure that we're communicating effectively.
Ms. Anderson used a good word, effectively. I want to make sure that we have the biggest single event impact, because I know as a parent with 2 children in the district, I get a lot of correspondence. So I want to I want to look at the way communication goes out, because I want to make sure that we're not reaching. The reason that we're not reaching some people is because they have become numb to being inundated with, a parent square notification and then a phone blast. And I understand why we're doing it because it's important and we want to get it out. But if there's too much, then it's not, as Ms. Anderson said, effective because it becomes too much. So I know it's a delicate balance and I appreciate how delicate that is, but we need to make sure that our communication is not overwhelming.
Anything else? All right, Dr. Terosian, I think you have some good takeaways.
Thank you.
The starting point. All right, thank you. And
Thank you all very much.
On to pending board issues, Dr. Terosian.
Certainly, just 2 proposals. First, the cognitive toolbox update, which had been requested earlier about this is the preschool update that had been requested by the board. I'd like to simply fold that into an update about our Canyon Early Learning Center, because I think in its entirety it'd be a nicer and more robust report. And so I'll make that change for the next board meeting. And CGI, as requested, has been folded in. So glad Ms. Anderson and actually Ms. Lockerbie were able to attend the presentations. It really was a very interesting and effective, and seems to be the word of the day, approach. And it's inspiring to see that kind of deep learning occurring. And that concludes pending board issues.
All right, thank you, Dr. Tarosian. Under old business, February 10th, our next board meeting will be on February 10th at 7 o'clock and also February 24th at 7 o'clock. Under new business, we have Board of Education workshop scheduled February 12th. And President's Day, all sites will be closed Monday, February 15th. And in observance, there's a legal holiday. All sites will also be closed on Monday, February 22nd. Any other items for under new business? Ms. Golar.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask if we as a board could review the board policy about the naming of facilities. I believe it's board policy 7310. I have an interest in us looking at and considering the renaming of the Monrovia High School Wellness Center in the name of Susan Hirsch, but there's protocols and steps before you just get there. So asking that we as a board review the board policy for the naming of facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Golar. Dr. Tarosian, if we could push out a copy of the existing board policy and we can start that review process so we can go forward and be consistent in the way that we identify those buildings or facilities naming.
Of course.
In someone's name. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Golar. And before we adjourn the regular board meeting, I'd like to close in the meeting in memory of Betty Sanford, and I have a few words to share with the public. We would like to close tonight's meeting in memory of former MUSD board member Betty Sanford, who passed away early this month. Betty, amongst many other things, was a former MUSD board member serving from 1999 until her resignation in 2005. Betty, a lifetime Monrovian and a very active community member, participated in successful efforts to strengthen both the Monrovia School District and the city of Monrovia. With a public service career dating back to 1952, Betty was active in Monrovia's first Human Relations Committee, the development of the city's first Head Start program, and supported the integration of Monrovia's schools. Betty served on the Monrovia Chamber of Commerce, Monrovia League of Women's Voters, Foothill Unity Center, Arcadia branch of AAUW, the Pasadena Conservatory of Music, and served as president of OI Help Our Youth. The Monrovia Community Services Commission, Monrovia Changemakers, and founder of Monrovia Reads, to name a few of the organizations she was part of. Betty Sanford was a generous and loyal patron of the arts in Monrovia, especially with her support of the professional productions of the community. MUSD Performing Arts Director Patrick Garcia had this to say about her. There are some extraordinary people we have the privilege of meeting and getting to know on our journey of life. And if we're lucky, we get the chance to get to know someone like Betty Sanford. Betty dearly loved the performing arts and was always there to cheer on and support our productions and special events. In 2012, when we raised the curtain of the Taylor Performing Arts Center at Monrovia High School after the remodel, Betty offered her beautiful home as a place to gather and celebrate the opening of the new Performing Arts Center. She always said anything the school district needs a space to have an opening night, reception, or gathering, she would be honored to host it. And in fact, that's exactly where I met Betty Sanford for the first time. She hosted many receptions over the years. And Betty was an advocate and a patron of our work at the Performing Arts Center, and she helped to make our productions take flight. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Sanford family during this time. And I'll go ahead and close the meeting at 8:59 p.m. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Maritza. Thank you.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.